gentlemen, let's welcome James here. How's it going, man?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show, and looking forward to talking about some wrestling and the latest going-ons in life.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. So tell the rest of the audience where they can find your social media platform and tell them what you've been up to, man.
Yeah, I love it how everyone legit thinks he is my actual surname. So it's quite fun. It's just a pseudonym. But yeah, I mean, if you want to quickly follow me on social media, then yeah, it's just James here on Twitter and Instagram. If you're not following me, follow the Cafe de Rene, Cafe de Rene, and Cinemax at Cinemax. They're my other two channels. But yeah, besides that, everything's been good. Really, just been working on the channels. Editing, man, I hate it.
Hey, but you got a good podcast going on with a lot of group of wrestlers, man. You got a good. So what led you to go to Cafe Rene, bro? That's just interesting.
Right. Long story short, so I started my original podcast, that 90s wrestling podcast, because it was lockdown, and my legit job, I'm a builder. So basically, the government said, right, if you can't work from home, you can go to work. I thought, oh, that's great. The only problem is every building merchant or suppliers, as you call them, was closed. I'm like, well, I can't go to work. So I'm like, right, there's two things I can do. I can go on a diet and work out or start a podcast. I think podcasting might be a bit easier. So started that 90s wrestling podcast where we originally just reviewed 90s WWE pay-per-views. Had a lot of fun doing that. It's something I definitely need to bring back eventually. But eventually I just got into interviews, and my first interview was one of the original TNA knockouts, Goldilocks. She was like the backstage interviewer, and she'd done some of the music from. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. And then I managed to get in contact with Impact Wrestling, Ace Austin, actually. I messaged him, and he said, talk to, what's the guy's name now? Ross Foreman, his name is, and see what we could do. Anyway, one thing led to another, managed to get interviews. And yeah, I just kept doing interviews. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it or good, but I thought I was okay at it. And then one day, Rene came on. And one of my pals, Jonah, who works on Cafe as well, he interviewed Rene a few weeks before I did. So I think Rene was very, very standoffish doing interviews for like a long time, besides Hannibal's channel. But anyway, I managed to get him on the show, and we had a good episode, I thought. And we kind of stayed in contact. And then a week or two afterwards, our good friend, Mr. Five-Time Booker T, commented on one of our clips where Rene spoke about Goldberg and Goldberg messing up his shoulder. So then, like, I love Booker T, but for some reason he does not like us. He basically was saying, you know, Rene was this, Rene was that, and blah, blah, blah. So Rene wasn't too happy. So I said to Rene, I'm like, well, do you want to come back on the show and we can do a response video? So he's like, yeah, we'll do that. Came back on, done a response video. That done pretty well. And I said to him, are you interested in starting your own podcast one day? He said, I have thought about it. So basically, I said to him, I'm like, well, we're not going to make money straight away. It's a long process. I said, it's normally, for a lot of channels, it takes between a year and 18 months before they get monetized, basically. Sometimes longer. Fortunately, we was able to do it a bit quicker. But yeah, we started doing the show. Took us a few episodes till we found our niche. We started getting some guests on. And eventually, I wouldn't say it blew up, but eventually we managed to get quite a few subscribers and quite a few views. And yeah, it's just been a wild ride since.
Yeah, you know, the way I've started off podcasts is usually I started off doing football interviews and a bunch of other stuff. And then I started looking for other purposes. And I'm like, yeah, I love wrestling, but I just haven't been keeping track. But I've been looking at the old school wrestlers. And then I don't know, just the luck of getting a bunch of these wrestlers on. And actually, I had Jacques Russo not that long ago on my show. I love that dude. That dude's funny. He's a funny guy. Like he comes up with some good catchy phrase, and then he's a chill dude. So he anytime he talks about his incident, he talks about how he inspires the people to stand up to the bullies. So that's what I liked about his interview. And then actually I had Rene like last year or something.
Yeah, I remember watching it. Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, his reception was pretty damn bad when he was in Japan.
So yeah, he was touring in Japan last year, and I'm from the UK. So normally, where Renee's from New Brunswick, I'm normally 4 hours ahead, and I'm 5 hours ahead of Eastern time. So right now it's 11:05. So I record quite late. But when he went to Japan, I'm trying to work it out now. I think Japan was ahead. I think they're ahead.
Like way ahead. I think it was 8 hours ahead or something like that.
Yeah, I think Rene was like 6 or 7 hours ahead of me. Something like that.
Yeah, because he gave me a time where he was available, and he said, I'm at this time zone. This is the time would work for you. And he told me if you're West Coast, this is the time you would probably be better for.
Yeah, it's because I had to record like say 12 o'clock, and he would have to get up to like 5 a.m. to do the shows.
Yeah,
and we funny enough, we joked about it the other day, like on the phone. I said, "Do you remember when we used to do them times?" He said, "I don't know how he used to do them. He used to kill me because he would do that, then he would go have a workout, and then he would be wrestling that night." So, if there's one thing I can say about Rene, he's committed to the channel. He has put a lot of hard work into it. So,
yeah,
I'm glad. Yeah.
Like out of all the other podcasts I've watched out of wrestling, is either him I'll watch or just usually Jim Cornette. Sometimes
I
mean, I actually had Kenny Bolin on a couple of times, but I like his show. He's a very supportive guy, but he's like he kind of does give you a little bit of those little rants sometimes, and I just get a good laugh out of it.
I love Kenny. People legit thinks me and Kenny hates each other because it's not so much different of say political views. Kenny is left wing. I'm neither. I'm neutral. I take a look at both sides.
Yeah.
For example, I listen to Joe Rogan. For example, people's like he's crazy right wing. I'm like, what? Because I listen to Joe Rogan, and yet I'll be the first person to say it's stupid that people can buy guns from the shop, the Walmart. That's me from the UK. I can only give my point of view.
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah. But me and Kenny, we've had some back and forth, but me and Kenny, every time we do a show, me and him will chat for another 10 or 15 minutes off camera. Like, we do actually get along. So Kenny's a good guy.
Yeah, I've had him on a couple of times, like especially on his wrestling interview. And then I had him on one of the football talks because he wanted to talk some football. So got him on that one time. But yeah, he's a very good dude. Maybe he might be a little bit flamboyant, but he's a good dude.
Well, I mean, I'll give you some behind-the-scenes stuff here. So, our first show with Kenny, it was pre-recorded. This was before we started doing live streams. Kenny told many great stories, and a lot of time I was pissing myself laughing. There was 3 Jim Cornette stories he told. 2 Jim Cornette stories, 1 Brian Last story. Jim Cornette's co-host.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that a certain lawyer got in contact with us, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. And I'm not saying and we had to take some certain clips down.
I mean, I heard Jim is hard to get because you have to contact Brian Last or somebody else to get him on, and he has to be approved or some shit like that.
So yeah, I mean, does he do any of interviews now since his own channels blew up? I don't know if he's had any. Does any more?
No, I think he only does he might appear on different shows when it has to do with the big names, but I don't think he really goes for the small channels like before. But I've seen that he used it. Yeah.
Sorry, no, yeah, because I mean, if there's a channel you think he would go and be someone like Chris Van Fleet, for example, because I mean he's massive.
Oh yeah, I mean, Actually, I was in the works with Val Venus, but he hasn't really replied back on the email after we were talking about a schedule. That one's a good guest to have. He's got some good stuff. But the one that was the more intense interview I've ever had was Stevie Ray. That guy was flipping off. He doesn't give a shit. Like he's like, dude, if you're not in the wrestling business, I don't got much to say to you. But hey, I'm gonna tell you like it is.
I've interviewed Stevie. He was actually one of my last interviews before I stopped doing my own channel, and he was great. like you said, he's very outspoken, but
he can be a little mean, but he's good.
He's great. I would love to have him on Cafe, but I don't know what he would say because, like I said, I would love to have Booker T on the show. Like we've said some stuff, he said some stuff. I don't know what he thinks of us now, but at the same time, Ryback was publicly wanting to fight Booker T, but then he ended up going on Stevie's podcast. So
I think from what Stevie told me in the interview, he told me that whatever goes on between him and his brother, that's not his problem. He says you guys got to deal with it yourself. So,
all right, fair enough.
That's what I was told. Like, because when I had him on the interview, I was asked, like, he just started beginning the Ryback topic with his brother in the beginning. I didn't even ask about it, but he just thought that was an interesting thing. And I'm like, and then he was like saying, let those two solve their issues. But I heard they're good. They squash. I don't know. He says, I'm not involved. He says, I don't got nothing to do with this. So I guess he's got a neutral in between. He just does his business.
Yeah, it's a smart way of looking at it. I've reached out to Ryback, but I haven't heard anything back from him. But he's, like I said, besides from a few people who I would say everyone's pretty much welcome to come on the cafe.
Oh, dude. I mean, yeah, usually you get a lot of great guests, especially Stevie Richards. I would love to get that guy on, man, just to get some rib stories because I've heard he's got the most ribs out of everybody else, and everybody just couldn't stand his, like, dude, I'm like, I got to find a way to get this guy on because I've heard a lot of damn good stories out of him.
The greatest Stevie Richards story I heard, and it wasn't from Stevie, it was from Paul London. And it was a story involving Stevie Richards and the Boogeyman. And before the match, Stevie's going to Paul. I can't do good. I'm not doing the story justice. But Paul says, Stevie came to me tonight. I'm wrestling. I can't do his voice. I'm wrestling Boogeyman. Easy. Clothesline. Finish. 1, 2, 3. Night off. So this was the plan for the match. So anyway, they're in the match. And clothesline. So when Stevie's went to go in for another clothesline, Boogeyman's held out his fist. And it's caught Stevie right in the throat. So Stevie's rolled outside, he's like screaming, and he's screaming. And all of a sudden, Boogeyman's jumping for joy. And he's torn out his quad. So Stevie's outside the ring screaming. Boogeyman's inside the ring screaming. Both of them got injured that night. But the way Paul tells it, it's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Like, I could tell from Paul's stories, even when he kind of actually, the weird part was I actually tried to reach out to that one wrestler that he was making funny voices out of, Luther Rings. I tried to reach out to him on. He actually followed me on Instagram too, but he never gets back to me like he says. Yeah, that one would be a good interview.
I think he follows us, but I know there's a couple of wrestlers. I don't think it was Luther. I think it was someone else. Renee said, like, after a couple of times we've told some stories, or Paul's told some stories, he notices that a lot of these wrestlers start unfriending them.
Yeah, like,
so, but yeah, the Luther Reigns meningitis stories, legendary.
Oh man,
like I said, everyone, if you want to check out our clips on Cafe Day, Renee, you won't be disappointed. We've got some funny stuff on there.
The one guy that's hard to get, that probably plays like a little douchebag a little bit. I've heard that Steamboat guy is a little difficult to get because he doesn't like to appear on everybody's shows.
Yeah, I think he's actually coming on that soon, actually.
I don't know why. But I get it. Maybe because he wants to stay away from the spotlight. I've tried to reach out to him a couple of times, and he said, "Oh, if you can charge me this, maybe I might." But nope. He says, "I'm not interested. Sorry."
Yeah, because I think we had, and I think you've had him. You've had Doug Basham on the show?
Oh, Doug Basham. I tried to get him on, but it's like my schedule was a little off, and then he's a busy guy with the training of OEW.
Yeah.
He's asking who Johnny Stamboli, which is he was a wrestler like in the early 2000s, but he was in WCW in the beginning, and then he started coming into the WWE as this Johnny Stamboli. Yeah, he actually had one of the cool ass gimmicks where he says bada boom, or some shit with the rat.
I remember him in the
incident with the Italians. I wanted to get him a part of the. I wanted to actually ask him about that incident where he kind of fucking just was like pulling out a character and just fucking laughing and just dropping down. I thought that shit was funny.
I remember he had his gimmick in TNA, Relic.
Yeah.
And every week, Mike Tenay was like, "Do you know Relic backwards spells killer?" I'm like, "Yes, Mike. You tell us every week."
Yeah, I heard about the injury where he actually hurt his. I think he actually hurt his nuts on the injury. One of them, but he had like one of those brings in the hardcore matches and all that. But I actually had Justin Credible on. I see you guys always get Johnny Candido all the time before, but he was on my show like a month ago. Good guy.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna be honest as well. Like when I did have my show, I was very, very lucky in the people who I've had on the show. But it's so much easier to get guests on the show when you're doing it with a wrestler. So it's like, oh, I did a show with Rene Dupree. Oh yeah, I'll come on. Like I love Rene. I mean, I can go on the show, which is, it's still surreal to me to this day. No way I would be able to get Cat Angle on my old podcast, but because I'm with Rene, he came on the show. Same with Jake the Snake. That was wow.
Like, Jake,
like if you told me how long ago now, 3 or 4 years ago now, when I first started podcasting, the names who I would interview with, and some of these people I stay in contact with and become good pals with, I wouldn't have believed it. So whenever there's people watching our show or this show, for example, if ever you're thinking that, oh, well, I can't do podcasting, I haven't got a mic or I haven't got anything, trust me, till very recently, I done all my podcasts on just my phone, and I've got no connections to the business, and I've been fortunate to have these guests. So never say never. If it's something you just want to do, just go for it. Day one's better than one day.
Oh yeah, I've actually had to start with no connection. Like the way I've got athletes, I just found ways. Like the better way to get these people is either to sometimes Facebook. You might be surprised; they might just message you back, and then Twitter is like a fast way for them to get back to you. Sometimes
Instagram. I mean, I normally try and contact people through email addresses.
Yeah, because they get back to you quickly. Like Val Venus has yet to get back to me because he was already talking about a schedule for me, but he kind of just maybe he was too damn stoned, so he must have forgot about messaging me.
That's the other thing as well. Is like people think, oh, you send out an email, they respond straight away. No, I've sent out, I would say, at least 1,000 emails, and I would say 5% of them got responded to.
Dad Severn didn't even he only got back to me one time, and that was it. Never got back to me since. And then Val Venus only got me a couple messages, and then after that, no schedule. So I'm like, damn, Val, you told me to email you. What the heck? dude, I just wanted to get him on and all that stuff. I actually had Buff Bagwell on. Nick Dinsmore's a good one. I actually liked his interview the best.
Yeah, Dinsmore was pretty good. Yeah, I think we've had him on a couple of times now. Yeah, he's actually a fun guy, actually. And I mean, like everyone's got their own era in wrestling. I started watching wrestling like super young when I was like 3 or 4, and my dad used to be a fan. And I say the words "used to be a fan" because he doesn't watch anything today. But he had all the old videotapes lying around. I'm aging myself now, video cassette tapes and or VHS tapes. So the first video I ever watched was Royal Rumble 90. And loved it, just fell in love. Like there was Hulk Hogan, the British Bulldog, and all these larger than life figures. And no, 91, sorry, Royal Rumble. And losing track of my story now. Yeah, so my era of wrestling lived the golden generation, as I call it, lived the new generation and the attitude. But for me, my one I grew up, what I remember the most vividly is the Ruthless Aggression era. So being able to talk to Eugene, I'm like, man, I love the Eugene gimmick, man. Like all these people, Mike Jindrak and all these people, like it's pretty stoked to do it.
Yeah, like during the time I grew up was Attitude Era. You had a lot of those invasion angles too with WCW going against WWF.
I loved it. It
That
gets a
was
lot
some
of
good.
hate, but I loved it.
And then I think the Invasion pay per view would have been really good if they would have had the right matches the right way. But oh well. I mean, there were some good finishes to it, but not like as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean that, and I said this to Rob RVD. His match against Jeff Hardy was the first time I ever watched Rob Van Dam, and I was
Oh yeah.
convinced he was. I was convinced he was John Claude Van Damme's brother.
Oh,
And
everybody
I said,
thinks that way. Everybody thinks.
and
that
I said this, and I said that to him. I said, but because I didn't get ECW beforehand. But yeah, it's no, the invasion angle was great. Could it have been better? Of course, it could have been. NWO, Sting, Goldberg could have been better, but for what they had,
Yeah.
some of the things probably could have been changed. I wouldn't have turned Angle, for example. But anyway, but I loved it, and it was you was on your seat every week. It's like, who's going to show up next? Fucking hell, Lance Storm's the Intercontinental Champion now. And I love Lance Storm.
Yeah.
Laziest razor. How's Rene feeling? Yeah, we done a show last night actually. Yeah, he's doing all right. He is a little bit of ring wrestling. I think it was the first time he wrestled for like 8 months. So he's getting used to it, but he's got a lot of shows booked for the rest of this year. So that ring rust will soon be shook off, and we can see the real Rene Dupree.
Yeah, I heard. I mean, last year he told me that he just didn't have a visa to go into the U.S. at the time, so that's what it was.
It took a while to get that waiver and everything, but yeah, that's all sorted now. And yeah, fingers crossed he'll be coming over to the UK next year, and like me and him, we definitely have to do the live Cafe de Rene in person.
Oh, that's got to be in person the way it sounds like, just like the meet and greet, like how you guys do. Actually, my most interesting interview I've ever had was Zilla Fatu. That guy is like up and coming Uso, man. That dude is something. I don't know if you ever guys had him on your guys' show, but I'll tell you what, man, he looks like the future.
Yeah, Samoans are taking over. Like they've always been historic, but man, every main event is Samoan these days.
Yeah, they got some good family bloodline. Like, what's more intriguing is I think the storyline between Jey Uso, I think he'll return maybe in WrestleMania. I'm assuming that they're trying to probably take him off for a while, maybe build up Jimmy Uso as something else.
Yeah, I think the plan is it's going to be Jimmy against Jey, but we're still a long way off till WrestleMania. And like, I think that was the plan to have that WrestleMania. And I'm like, we're still a long way off. So.
But maybe to build up Jimmy Uso as like a singles competitor, maybe they want to slowly build him up, just like how they did with Jey. Maybe Jey just takes a little hiatus, trains up, maybe changes up his style a little bit more. You know how that goes. Sometimes they want to have that match, but maybe Jey could take a huge break. There's been a lot of these rumors about him going to AEW, which is BS. He has to get off a 90-day contract or something like that, and I don't think he's under contract. I think it's a storyline.
He's not going to AEW. Edge, possibly.
Oh, that's what I've heard the rumors. I've heard the rumors about the Edge going to AEW. I'm intrigued. If it's true, can you imagine him and Christian work together?
Yeah, I mean, we put out a funny clip the other day. Paul was pretending to be on the phone call. It was hilarious. But I don't know. It's like Jeff Hardy, right? I love Jeff. Jeff's my second favorite wrestler of all time, and it's always weird seeing him in every other company except WWE. Like, and I enjoyed his run in TNA. AEW run, there's nothing to shout home about, and it's just hard watching him in AEW. And it's nothing against AEW, but it's just like certain wrestlers you associate them with certain companies. Like Sting for me is WCW, but yeah, if Edge goes to AEW, he might go. I remember there was talks that he almost went to TNA when Christian was over there, when TNA was doing really well, but he decided to re-sign with WWE. So he has been tempted before to leave the Fed, as the AEW fans calls it these days.
Oh man, like that's just been crazy rumors. I don't know if it's legit, but I guess Edge kind of like confirmed and said that he didn't. WWE did try to offer him another new contract, but he wants to go explore. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. You know, what really caught me by surprise this week, man, Bray Wyatt, man. Damn, I just didn't think this guy would just, like, I guess he was dealing with some health issues, but this man was getting over. Like, he could have been a really good top star, but he was getting buried from matches. Like, how do you get buried from Goldberg at this point, bro? I just never got it. Like, Goldberg was just a killer with these storylines.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to be honest. Like, I mean, it's very sad that the man's died while he's like 2 years older than me, and you know, and that, you know, I'm not exactly a skinny guy anymore, so I'm like, I really need to look after my health now. But it's definitely a wake up call. But I wasn't the biggest fan of his latest runs. I loved the original Wyatt family stuff, and I enjoyed the Fiend when it first came about, but then I kind of got bored of it, and you know, and I'm not going to contradict myself and be a hypocrite because I'm not, but still, man, it's just so sad. And Rene was the first person to tell me. He's like, Bray Wyatt's died, and I'm like, how? He says, I don't know. And you learn more and more now, and I think the latest thing I saw was that he was meant to have this defibrillator sort of thing like attached to him. Apparently he left it in his car, he went to sleep, and unfortunately didn't wake up.
That's what happens. Sometimes people die out of their sleep and you don't even expect it. Like he was dealing with some health issues before, and he was about to be medically cleared to make his return to the WWE. That's what I was hearing.
But
those slims are out the door now. I think they were going to build them up just so maybe they can build up a match with him and Roman Reigns, maybe.
Possibly. You don't know really, but it's definitely very, very sad. So, and they come in threes. I mean, obviously Terry Funk died the day before, and then the day after Bray, or a couple of days after Bray, which people kind of forgot about, albeit he wasn't a wrestler. Bob Barker, who was like a Raw guest host, he died like 99 years old.
He would have been 100, but yeah, he was like a long-time co-host. Price is Right is just not the same to me.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to Drew Carey, but I stopped watching Price is Right ever since Bob Barker retired.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to watch this other chunky guy that just talks on this game host? He was a comedian before he became the show host guy.
Yeah, I think Drew Carey, did he used to do
like the show called Drew Carey Show?
There was that, and what's the other stand-up improv one? Is it Whose Line Is It Anyway?
I think so. Like, I just know he was a comedian and he did a bunch of movies and stuff like that. But Bob Barker
was just, spot.
Yeah, Bob Barker was like good on his own part, but Bob Barker did appear on a couple of shows. Yeah. Oh, wait. I remember this segment a while back on Monday Night Raw when Chris Jericho actually got so pissed off. But remember the part where Jericho gets all mad at Bob Barker, but then he says one half, and then Bob Barker says, "You said one."
Yeah.
Anytime somebody guesses the number one, more than likely you have a good chance to enter. That's the good.
A lot of the Cafe Faithfuls here tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah. I actually enjoy watching some of the Renee's guesses, like especially how you guys bring in like Sly. I wanted to try to get him on. I'm pretty sure he's got some good Pat Patterson stories and a bunch of other stuff he could say.
Yeah, like I said, you know, when I had my own channel, I was fortunate to get some guests, but it's definitely a lot easier being paired up with like a professional wrestler who has got all the contacts. And it's quite surprising to realize how many people Renee actually got along with, because before I knew Renee, and you know, and I don't blame everyone else who has the same opinion, but before, you know, I became pals with Renee. Like, I heard the stories, you know, he was a bit unprofessional behind the scenes, and everyone heard about the Hardcore Holly story. But then, like, getting to know Renee and realizing, yeah, the guy was actually just shy, and a lot of people forget, like, he's running WWE. He was like 19.
He was like a youngster. He was still learning the business at that point, but he was trained by his dad. So he was just coming in as a, you know how, like let's say hypothetically, like, you know how, like, in the NFL, you get this rookie quarterback, right? You're going to throw this young kid in the fire when he's not ready. That's what Renee was at the time, because he was throwing in, but he actually won the tag team titles. Like, he was just getting thrown in the fire in the locker room. So I think as you get older and you mature, you learn from your past, you start to be more wiser. And Renee's actually evolved more in outside the other territories. So I think that's what got him to be a better professional. Is he learned from his mistakes and actually started to evolve it more.
Yeah, when I was 19, all I remember was getting drunk on the weekend and trying to pull a bed. So that was me.
I remember 19, getting my first tattoo that day and just chilling. That was like what it was, but yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people at 19 years old, there's not many that can say, hey, I won the title. Renee's the youngest WWE champion, like tag team title. Like he won the tag team title at 19 years old.
That's crazy when you think about it. I know people's like, well, what about Nicholas? That doesn't count. But yeah, it's surreal. Like 19 years old, not even in America, not even legally allowed to drink or
drink. Even in some storylines, he was like told that when he was doing storylines, the guys in the locker room didn't like the fact that he was too young to drink.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame, like the backstage stuff that happened there with him, because he was a young guy. A lot of people did feel threatened, and you can see why they was threatened. This young 19-year-old kid, he was Renee's 6'2", 260 pounds at the time of muscle. You would feel threatened by him, and
he's younger too, so it's like,
yeah, I mean, he was right there. He was drafted number 1 in the draft in 2004. Like, he was lined up to be like with your Cenas and Ortons, but unfortunately backstage politics and went against him. But never say never. Will he turn up in WWE again? Never say never. I believe he could one day, but we'll see what happens.
We shall see. I mean, it's still a possibility. Like never say never. But I guess you guys have been bringing, like, I guess more often it's always Paul London, but now it's like Sly who comes in every now and then, from what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So Sly popped in the other day when we spoke about Funk and Bray Wyatt, and Sly's great. I love talking to Sly, and he's so much fun to talk to. But yeah, we have our regular guests. I mean, Maven always pops in whenever he's free, so he's always great. Paul's basically a co-host, but Paul's
he's a good storyteller. I could just, like, watching all the interviews, he's always a good storyteller. Like, I could just see it, like, okay, this guy seems like a comedian just by giving you the stories of what they said.
Paul's great. He really is. And, like, fortunately, and I thank Rene for this, and I thank the cafe. Like, me and Paul, we talk every day. We've become really good friends. And, we talk about, I mean, it's the reason me and Paul's got a podcast now, Cinemax. We just talk about movies because we both love movies. And but he's just so naturally gifted, like being funny.
Yeah, he is. He just seems like you could just tell how he was, and then the fact that in one of the situations, like, I guess somebody was wondering why was he laughing during like one of those like situations when Vince was over there. Like, it just like kind of like caught me by surprise. But he said he wasn't fired because of that. He was actually fired for something else.
He was there for like nearly a year later, but unfortunately, whenever no offense, people, whenever I feel dumb or feel stupid, I just go on Twitter and I'm like, yeah, you're not that bad, James. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people don't do the research.
Nah, it's like he said he was gone because of other reasons. It had nothing to do with that smiling part where Vince was walking by or something. It had nothing to do with that part. But I think there was more behind the scenes. So, yeah, man. Like, hey, at least you're getting a lot of these wrestlers. At least you're working a consistent show, man. Paul London, man. I don't know. Does he really charge for interviews, or do you have to find people that know him that get him in or something like that? Because, I mean, he's got a lot of good storytellings.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of wrestlers these days, they kind of have to vet the people who show they're going on, making sure, right, the person who I'm talking to, they're a good person. They're not going to try and use me words again. Because wrestlers these days, they have to be quiet now. There's a lot of people that can take whatever they say and twist it into a certain way. So I think that's why a lot of wrestlers now are a bit standoffish doing so many interviews. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some wrestlers out there who will charge money and will say whatever. I mean, look at Honky Tonk Man.
Honky Tonk's hard to get, huh?
He actually put a tweet out recently saying don't do shoot interviews because it's on the internet forever. I think he said some of that recently. But I think a lot of wrestlers now, they're being more careful because, I mean, you know yourself, it's so easy to get cancelled these days.
Yeah, they don't want to get into it as much. But how do I get in contact with Sly? I tried to reach out on one of his Facebook, never gets back. Part would be a good storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Rene's the guy who brought him on. I mean, he's on Facebook, so I guess Facebook's your way to go. Or I haven't got an email address, otherwise I would give it to you. But that's Sly for permission first. Rene's the guy who brings them on, so
he brings in a lot of great guests. Yeah, he's got the connection. He's got everybody else. It'd be kind of nice if he gets Luther Reigns on for once. That'd be kind of a good interview.
I would love to get Luther Reigns on because
just to see what Paul Levin reacts to. You're gonna pay for this, all of it.
The catchphrases, what happens from that show. I mean, we will be bringing out some more merchandise in the winter time. Well, in the fall time, actually, or autumn for UK fans. But we'll be bringing out some more hoodies and stuff. And we've got our Patreon as well, so we'll probably be sticking some polls on the Patreon so they can choose what should be the next design, the next slogan. But there's so many catchphrases that's come from it. It's like the all of it. Rene sent me a message a few weeks ago. I forgot what it was, but at the end of it was like all of it. And I just started pissing myself laughing. I sent him laughing emoji. He said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "I can't help but think of Luther Reigns." So
it kind of
that's sorry.
It's very catchy when he says it. Like I don't know if that's the legit one, but it seems like he doesn't really respond on Instagram. So it's like, damn.
Yeah.
It's got to be pretty fun to just interact with all these wrestlers behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, when I first started doing this, it was just literally a review show. I mean, it was kind of a rip-off OSW review. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm 34 now. I've been watching wrestling since I've been 4 to my imagination. So at least 30 years, I've been watching it. So a lot of these people who I've spoke to is people who I watched. And like I said, talked to Kurt Angle. And I'm speaking to Kurt Angle. Rob Van Dam, I've spoke to a few times now. And Jake Snake. A lot of my crushes growing up, like Candice Michelle, Joy Giovanni, and whoever.
Oh, yeah, crazy.
Dawn Marie. I was like, wow. So it's a privilege to be able to do it. And the day I get bored of it and I'm not enjoying it anymore is the day I'll stop doing it. And don't get me wrong, there's been days it's like, man, this is hard work. And it is hard work to run a channel. It really is. It's making sure your content going out, you're making sure guests is coming on. Live streams is in place, creating links, thumbnails. There's a lot of work that comes into it, and dealing with the trolls.
You get that all the time.
I get it a lot. People hate me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm English and they don't like my accent. I don't know what it is.
No. You gotta. I guess they just think because of like you said. But then the fact that you got your way on the door, like you said, some people get a little itty bitty jealous because of what you're doing.
Yeah,
but you gotta do you. That's all it is. Do you?
Well, I've had a few people comment, "Oh, fire James, get rid of James," and people respond to them like, "Why?" And I wrote one the other day. It was like, because I had the confidence and self-esteem to go out of my comfort zone and start a podcast, whereas a lot of incels won't do that. And people agreed with me.
I mean, dude, if Rene wants you on there, then you stay where you're at, man. Like, that's what I get a lot of criticism on different communities where they're like saying, why is this guy on this network? He's not that great. There's other guys, there's other content creators, but you chose this guy. Like, I get that all the time, the same thing.
It's not easy to podcast. You need and I've been guilty of rambling, and I know that. And my vocabulary ain't that great. But I remember the very first podcast I done. It was an audio podcast, and I was shitting bricks. And I was only doing the show with Rob UTT Rob. It was like, man, am I going to make a fool of myself? I don't know if I can do this. And took me about half an hour, and then I love doing it. But it takes a lot to do podcasting. You need confidence. You realize people's going to be watching this. You don't want to make a fool of yourself. And
Yep.
once it's on the internet, it's on there forever. It does take a lot to do it. But basically, the people that criticize is people, ankle biters, I call them. They just like, they've got nothing else going on in their life.
They're jealous.
And they're jealous. Simple as that. And I don't want people like that to be jealous. I don't want to put myself over, but like I said, if I can do it, and believe me, no connection, if I can do it, you can do it. And I want to try and encourage people to go out of their comfort zone and start their own podcasts.
Yeah. For some people, it takes a lot of connections with the people, but if you have ways to network with other people without the connections, and that tells you got the drive and desire. Like me, for example, when I first started doing this type of stuff, I didn't have any connections with these type of people. Like, it took me some time, started making decent content, and then I started finding some ways to connect with those players and those wrestlers, and it started kicking in. So it's all about the connection. It's all about what they know. So sometimes if you're lucky, this is what one of my interviewer guys told me. He said it's always good to always look for the next one, just the next interview guy. Like sometimes you may get your connection from them. So he says you might want to take your shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's making them connections. And like I said, I started with nothing when it comes to podcasting. I had no connections at all. Yeah. My day-to-day life, I talk to a lot of people. So I've got the confidence to talk to anyone and not get nervous talking to them. Don't get me wrong. One of my first big interviews I've done was Rob at RVD.
Damn.
He was it wasn't the earliest one, but I remember because I was coming up to like 420 subscribers. So I'm like, hey, Rob, nearly at 420 subscribers, will you come on? And he joked. He's like, oh, I don't know if your channel's big enough. I'm like, yeah, I do these numbers. Come on. Anyway, he started following me on Twitter, back and forth. He's like, yeah, I'll come on such and such a date. So I remember when I was waiting for him, and I was nervous. I was like, well, it's 5 minutes till Rob's on. And then he came on and I had like the biggest smile on my face. I'm like, fucking hell, I'm talking to Rob Van Dam. But yeah, it's it's good. But yeah, I mean, making the connections is good. Like I said, fortunately, I try to stay in contact with a few wrestlers. Like I said, I've got a pretty good relationship with Maven. We don't talk every day, nothing like that. But he's like, message me whenever you want, James. He said, if I'm free, I'll come on the show. And there's a couple of wrestlers I stay in contact with. There's a couple of people in WWE who's messaged me personally or messaged the cafe Instagram and said, we love the show, like keep doing what you're doing. Active wrestlers in WWE, so it's pretty humbling.
Yeah, it's got to be humbling for them to reach out, and then you still got those connections with those other guys. So that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, Maven's got a good good YouTube going on. Like I've been watching a lot of his episodes. A lot of the stuff that he was talking about, like he would compare how much money you make in WWE, this and that, and then he kind of compares what happened in the locker room, talks about the bumps and all the other stuff, and then talks about. I think that's the thing about Maven. He gives you different insights of what he did in the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's great seeing his numbers. It really is. If it was any other wrestler, if it was a wrestler I didn't particularly like, then yeah, I would be a bit jealous and bitter. Because it's Maven, and I love Maven, I couldn't be more happier for him. And the approach he's done, he's not just a normal podcast. And no disrespect to podcasts, I've got two. He's a YouTube channel. It's a completely different concept. I'm surprised more wrestlers didn't do that beforehand. Whoever his guy is, he's doing an unbelievable job, and I couldn't put him over more than I am. He's just hit that niche so good, and so is Stevie Richards because he's similar.
Oh yeah, Stevie Richards was the little analyst and stuff like that, like about the moves and all that stuff. I mean, he actually had like a gym channel. Now he has this. Like, it grows quickly.
Yeah, and it's different. And don't get me wrong, I love what me and Rene does for the cafe. We love having guests. We love our format, what we do. Different strokes for different folks. Like some ways suit better than others. But I'm surprised there wasn't many more wrestlers who done it similar to what Maven and Stevie's doing. But it's a great concept, and I wish them all the best. Like, they're doing so well, and I couldn't be more happier for them.
Yeah, there's a lot of different wrestlers who do it differently. Like some of them just rather just do a regular podcast and not do these little breakdowns or other stuff. Like Maven just gives you exactly how much he made and this. He gives you some funny stories and other stuff. I think he had the one where he was kind of showing the play, like showing the bump he was supposed to have, but he kind of messed it up a little bit on that one incident with Snitsky.
Oh, yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, he talked about that breakdown a little bit, how it was his fault and he deserved it even though it was unnecessary.
Yeah, Maven was actually, because Maven was like, when my channel was called That 90s Wrestling Podcast, Maven was my last ever interview. And it was the first interview he'd done for a while. I think he'd done Chris Van Fleet the year before, but he didn't do any other episodes. And I found him. I done a lot of fucking research to find him. That's another thing, guys. Another thing. It's so hard to find contact details for a lot of these. Maven's as easiest now because he's got his email address now. But this is before he had an email address. He didn't use Twitter. He didn't use his Instagram. I found it. And,
so is there like a way to get in contact with him, or is it just through the emails or stuff like that?
Emails, man. Just go for the emails. That's how I do it. You know, if you can get the email address, just, I mean, basically, introduce yourself, say, my name's such and such, this is what I do. If you want to say how many numbers you get in, you do that. Say, I've interviewed such this, and this. Would love to have you on the show, and that's it. They can only say there's 3 responses. There's no response, there's no I'm busy, or yeah, sure, when do you want to do it? That's it, basically. I've had so many times. There's one wrestler, I won't say who, but I must have emailed this wrestler about 3 or 4 times till eventually one time he got back to me and said, I don't do wrestling podcasts, leave me alone.
Some of them are like that. Like some of them don't even want to bother with it, so it's like you got to respect it, so let it be.
Yeah.
Oh, did any wrestlers act drastically different off air compared to when recording? Ooh, actually by experience, the one guy who was part of the most, like he's very different than most people. Like even if you look at his character, you would say, that's just who he is. And like he just plays the character, but outside the scene, I would have to say Rico was probably one of the most humble guys. Very humble dude. Like you would just say the way he played the role, he was just a cocky heel a little bit, but I think off air, this guy was very chill, very respectful guy.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy to think because obviously we all remember his gimmick in WWE, basically like the Adrian Street gimmick, rest in peace. But then legit real life, he's a legit badass, like Taekwondo, American Gladiator, like police officer. The guy's legit badass.
Yeah, but he had some good stories and a bunch of stuff. And I think out of like the way he acts behind the scenes is he'll just want to know exactly what he wants to say and all that stuff. He tries to be more professional because before we go on an interview, he would just tell me, what you want me to do? You want me to do this or that? Because he wants to perfect it. That's just something he would prefer to do.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. Like a lot of the guests we've had on have all been great, really. The one guest who did surprise me, but I understand now why he was so holding back. We had Pillman Jr. on when he was under contract with AEW, and he was fine. Like I like to say, he's a young guy, but the guy's like 30, so he's not so young now. But when I was interviewing, I could tell there was a lot of frustration there, and there was a lot of things he wanted to say, but he couldn't say because he was under contract. I wish I could get him on the show now, and I probably could, because I would imagine he'd be a completely different interview. He would have a lot to say now.
Yeah, because sometimes the ones you interview before, they eventually become something successful. You got to take whatever you can get. So like Zillow too was just a golden opportunity. It just seems like, and everybody liked that interview more than the ones I've interviewed in the past. Like I think out of my best wrestling interview, it has to be Zilla because it's like it's got the bigger view ratings of it. And then the one that I had the best one was So like outside of him, I would think it would have to be Nick Dinsmore. I think it's Nick Dinsmore.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I think it was Dinsmore or was it Rico? I don't know which one it is, but I had a lot of interviews. So like Buff Bagwell was a decent interview. Stevie Ray wasn't it wasn't even like as good as I thought. Like I was like, man. And his podcast is not that big too. That's the crazy part. He's too polished.
It's amazing. And I say this to Rene as well. Like, there's podcasts that is bigger than us. I know that, but I'm amazed. I'm amazed. I'm not amazed because Rene's great. I know I'm putting him over, and he'll probably watch this and be like, "Wow, James has really put me over." But Rene's hardworking. He really is, and he's intelligent, and he's got a lot of in-depth, a good look at it, like at wrestling. But I'm amazed, like, because we're at 17,500 subs. We're hoping to get 20 by the end of the year. So people watching this, if you're not subscribed to Cafe Day Rene, please do so.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of podcasts out there with like more established wrestlers, I would say. And like they've got less subscribers than us, and they've been out a lot longer. And I'm like, it's amazing, like how some of these channels don't take off, and some do. I mean, like I said, look at Maven. Maven, like he had a good 2 or 3 year run in WWE. Well, he was there longer, but you mainly remember him for about 3 or 4 years. That run, but like he's just blew up. So sometimes it's amazing, like what channels blows up and some doesn't.
Yeah, it is. Oh, if he's asking about my dream interview, this one's going to be pretty hard to get. I mean, I don't want to sound controversial, but I would love to get Jim Cornette just to get a lot of his rage, a lot of his little. I like to get a lot of his stuff, and I would not care if he cusses and curses, bro. I just want to get a lot of that rant interview because he's a great storyteller, and anytime he has something to say, all I have to mention is Vince Russo, and he'll just blow up like a steam, bro. I would just say that would be my dream interview, but he's hard to get. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I feel like Jim Cornette now. This might be controversial to say. I feel like now Jim Cornette's more known for his podcast than his wrestling career at this point.
Yeah, and that's what I would think he would probably be a good guest to have because if I were to bring up Vince Russo, he'll blow up. If it's any other people, he'll blow up, and I'll get a good golden opportunity out of his rants. But if I were to ask specific questions, he might just educate me and say, well, I've been around here longer than you or this and that. But I think the way he kind of describes the business, it's like it's not the same like the way he grew up to. But I would love to like just take knowledge out of the guy.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I mean, if it was if it was an all-time interview, like somebody that I would want to interview, it's got to be The Undertaker. That's got to be a legendary interview.
Yeah. I mean, like T-Man says, like Brett is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Well, yeah, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bret Hart mark, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But yeah, I mean, before I would say, yeah, I'll never be able to interview these people, but never say never. Like I said, I've interviewed Kurt Angle, who's legit an all-time legend, same as Jake the Snake. So one day, will I be able to speak to Undertaker, or yourself even? Never say never. I mean, I would love to talk to Hulk Hogan. I listened to his Joe Rogan episode the other day, and I loved it. I don't know how much of it was truth or bullshit. I loved it anyway. Vince McMahon, I think, would be the holy grail of interviews. Imagine sitting down.
Yeah, he would.
2 hours.
Like, he would actually be a good one. Like, because he's the owner and he probably has a lot of damn good stories, but he's probably like low key and say, "What do you want to know, pal?"
Yeah. Sorry.
Or maybe this might sound controversial, but maybe we can get a good damn interview at a poor Johnny. Hey, yes, I was fired because of this. They accused me of this stuff. I'm just unemployed at the moment. Ask me any other questions, and I'll be glad to answer.
Johnny would be a good one as well, believe it or not. And I think Rene, if Rene really wanted, he could probably get Johnny. Johnny would be great, actually.
I think that would be a good one because nobody hasn't heard of his stories behind the scenes. Maybe he might have rubbed people the wrong way, but I would think he probably has some good behind the scenes stories.
Yeah, I know someone, me and Rene, because we're both Max from, we would love to get us Rick Martel, but he just doesn't do any. He turned down Dark Side of the Ring when he was doing the Dino Bravo episode. He actually turned it down. But we both love Rick Martel. We would love to have him on, but I don't think he's got any interest doing it. I think the only thing I've seen him do, like in the wrestling business, is like one virtual signing in the past few years, and that's pretty much been it.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're talking cinematic interviews, like actors, like I don't know, you like Seagal because I guess he's like known for those little fighting movies and all that stuff. He's like that kind of movie where he breaks your arm and all that stuff. And like if I had a dream actor I wanted to interview, this may sound controversial, but Jim Carrey. I would like to get Jim Carrey.
Yeah, love Jim Carrey. My kids love Jim Carrey. My eldest, his two favorite actors is Jim Carrey and Chris Pratt.
Oh yeah, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's a good one. Will Ferrell I like in some ways because he kind of has that weird character, that funny weird character.
Yeah, I mean for me it'd probably be not exactly. Well, he's a good actor really, but just because he's so funny, he's Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah, Eddie Murphy. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Eddie Murphy. Like that dude is just too funny. Oh, I guess Sean Penn's another name out there. I would say for another actor that nobody talks about the most that I like the most is I mean, there's a lot of great ones, but it's like if you go by the way they play the roles, it just stands out on some of them. Like I think people don't even give this guy enough credit after his pro wrestling career. He actually has some good acting, like Batista, for example. Batista did a good role for the Guardian of the Galaxy, and actually, I met this guy when I was a kid. Got his autograph. I never knew one day this guy was going to be the Hollywood star. Who would have thought that in 2005, this guy ends up being a Hollywood actor. And he was a WWE champion, like the world champion at one point.
Yeah, and I mean, really, if you look at it, like from all the wrestlers who's transitioned to acting, he's probably had the best career.
Yeah. Alan Kunis would probably be an interesting one, but I would think, what's his name? I think Seth MacFarlane would probably be a good one.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Like obviously Family Guy and stuff, he would be pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, me and Paul's probably going to be working on getting some actors onto the show pretty soon. So he's got one connection with a certain person from Cobra Kai. So, because our next episode this Thursday, we're doing Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, the Karate Kid trilogy. So I said to him, if you can bring a certain person on at the same time, I said that'd be pretty good. So we'll see. But that's our next episode. We're going to be talking all things Karate Kids.
Oh, there's another actor I actually had on, like almost like I guess 5 months ago or something. But he used to play the movie Boys of the Hood. But if you follow him on Instagram or follow him on Facebook, Beha Jackson. Nah, that's a golden interview to get, man. Like I have it on this channel where I actually interviewed him, and he gave me a good story about it, like what got him into the business. But this guy, he played the role just perfect. That's exactly what he was. He wasn't just a gimmick; he was a real life person out of the movie. Like he played exactly what what Doughboy was before he grew up, or something like that.
And
he played Three Ninjas.
Who was he in Three Ninjas?
Yeah, he played on one of the Three Ninja movies. But just look him up, Beha Jackson, and let's see if Paulo would be interested in that dude. He's chill. He's pretty cool dude. Like he looks like Bone Crusher, that rapper, but he's a cool dude. Right.
I remember what do you call I interviewed I don't know if you remember him, Ken Foray. He was the dad from Kenan and Kel. And he's been in a lot of Rob Zombie movies, and he was in like the original Dawn of the Dead. He was a pretty fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, you should try to get like maybe you should get that dude Beha Jackson just for different purposes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm related to the Hurricane. I don't know about. Brandon. I wish I could get that dude on my show too, man. That dude had the coolest gimmick where he's like.
Yeah, it's like I know he's friends with Rene on like Facebook and stuff, and well, the thing is, a lot of these guys under contract do WWE. I think we're blackballed from WWE, when they're under a contract, then
they can't do it.
They're very, very limited in what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, they're not allowed to do it.
And unless you're a big channel like Chris Van Fleet, then and then well done to Chris. I like Chris. I've spoken to him a few times now. Sometimes you have to have like a super big channel to be able to get these people on the show, unfortunately.
Man, so you have connection towards that guy? Maybe I might need to work with this guy.
Chris is a good guy, actually. He's very, very humble. And he done my own channel, and he's been on Cafe, and Rene went onto his channel. That's what helped us grow quite a lot as well. But Chris is a really good guy, so you should definitely hit him up. I think he's got his email address available on Instagram, so send him an email, and I'm sure he'll respond to you.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out. But yeah, dude, it's good that everybody has their success. I mean, we all start from the ground up, and sometimes we find our purposes. But for all those content creators who want to pursue getting guesses, it's not impossible. You just have to have the determination. You got to have that drive. And I can just look back at myself and say, yeah, I might have had an okay podcast career, but at least I brought in some damn good guesses that were like wrestlers, NFL players, or college prospects, or stuff like that. I can always put my head up high a little bit and say, I didn't need those credentials. I just found ways to get them.
Yeah, it's surprising, when you put your mind to it. And this is I don't want to be philosophical or anything like that, but whatever you put in, you'll get out from it. Like I said, for people watching, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, it's if you're thinking, well, I'll never be able to get this person. I was in that boat, and a lot of hard work has to go into it. Okay, you don't get anything for not doing anything. Find the details, long as you're, well spoken, and you've got the determination, you've got the passion for it, and you have to be persistent, you have to be and patient as well. These things can happen. And like I said, how many interviews have I done? Oh man, I must have done 200 interviews.
Yeah, that's just so many, dude. That's so many for you to keep track of. But for me, I think the most interviews I've ever had was either the football players, but wrestling, I'm starting to get half of what I get from the football interviewers. So I'm starting to get some of those wrestlers in. It's been my luck. It's sometimes I find some wrestlers who follow me, and then they say, oh yeah, I'll go on your show. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just doing your best, send them out, and see how it goes.
Ooh, question to James. Do you think WWE's Bray Wyatt showcase mode needs to happen I think they need to bring him in as a character anyways. I mean, I would think.
Yeah, I didn't get the latest one. I've got 2K22, but I didn't get to 23 because for me, besides the Cena mode, I don't think there was much different in it. I'm still waiting for him to bring back Story Designer, and I don't know how that mode has not been brought back yet, especially for content creators and YouTubers. You thought it'd be an easy thing. Showcase mode, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be against it. I would love for Shawn Michaels showcase mode or Bret Hart showcase mode, preferably. But a Bray Wyatt showcase mode, it's definitely something that could happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it.
I mean, I did the showcase one on 23, which that's the one I got. So I got that. Most of the games I play is either Madden or I'll just play the WWE, the one they got currently, which I know they got 2K24, which I just bought 2K23. Let's see. Yeah, I play a lot. I play the Grand Theft Auto games the most. What sports is football debate? What we do in football debate is we discuss stuff. We bring in people who know their stuff, or I'll just bring in some ex-NFL players on just to talk some football. And there's stuff I talk behind the scenes with them, and it's pretty cool. Even for a guy that I keep in contact, I don't like his team, but he's a good dude. So, I keep my stuff professional, and we talk a lot of good stuff behind the scenes. So it's whatever we got planned for the show, he'll hit me up and say, hey, can we do this? I'm willing to do it. And I'm like, all right, we can do it. So it's that's how I work my business with them.
Yeah, I've tried to get into the NFL. I mean, when I'm watching the highlights, it's the greatest sport in the world. But there's just so many stoppages. So I just can't get into it. But I cheer on the Eagles if they're doing well. But I mean, my main sports, proper football, as I call it, the one what you actually use your feet to do. UFC, Formula One, and and probably some snooker. So they're probably my main sports.
Oh, dude, I had Kenny Bolin on one of the episodes, actually. I actually had Kenny Bolin on one of my other channels where we were just talking the Dolphins and the Niners matchup, and he's a Dolphins fan, so he knows his stuff. But he was talking about the past players and all that stuff. Then he was talking about the quarterback they got. Kenny Bolin knows his stuff when it comes to the team he roots for. So he said, yeah, he's a Dolphins fan. So
the weirdest thing about American sports and the franchises. So where are you from? Do you mind me asking?
Ooh, what, me?
Yeah, where are you based? Like, what's
I'm in California, which is West Coast stuff. What I root for here is just the Bay right there. But usually that's where I get a lot of my content is usually those NFL players, or I'll get wrestling. I kind of mix it up in between, bro. Like I try to keep it more interesting for everybody else. Like sometimes you gotta make it a little bit more. And I found passion of wrestling, so that's what it was.
Yeah, because the thing with like the American franchises, what amazes me, they can be based in California, and then 5 years later they're in Las Vegas. So it always confused me like where these franchises, like these teams, can move from like a completely different state.
Oh, you're talking about the Raiders that kind of they were a team in California, but in Oakland, they've been known to move from city to city from before. Like they were moving, like the Rams,
really amazes me.
Like the Los Angeles Rams. You'd be surprised they were in St. Louis and they just moved right down Los Angeles. Chargers, they just moved 2 hours back from where they were, from San Diego to LA.
Because like our football, like we're seeing like a few American owners, but we're seeing a lot of Middle Eastern owners more than anyone, and that just wouldn't work in England at all. They couldn't do it.
Now you guys take the soccer seriously. I think sometimes you guys might be able to see some benefit. Yeah,
it's football, not soccer.
Football. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's what you guys call it? Is football, not like soccer or nothing?
Some people call it soccer. We call it football.
Okay, so football. All right, I got to get the culture of it, man. My bad. Oh, thoughts on WWE selling out the Jaguar Signature Championship? Tony Khan must be
that's funny.
Oh, dude, because the sad part is the Jaguars associate with AEW, so that kind of does seem like an insult.
It's because they're designing like the championship belts, ain't they, for the NFL teams?
Yeah, they got it for all NFL teams, and I guess the Jaguars sold out more. But the crazy part is Tony Khan can actually get his dad to sue.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't, because the Jaguars, like the AEW franchise, it's run by the Jaguars because of the dad's owner. But I think the dad would be super mad. Tony Khan actually runs AEW, which is weird, but how do you go from like it's only one football team that associates with them? And you see a lot of these AEW wrestlers, some of them just wear the Jaguar stuff. You notice they wear the Jaguar sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's because he owns Fulham Football Club over here as well.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when they come over because football fans are not like wrestling fans. Like, we don't give a fuck what we say. So,
oh, dude, that would be an insane interview if you had that interview before you died, man. That would have been an intense interview. Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. Bo Dallas is pretty out there. I remember when he was on Jericho's show a few years ago, and he's very, very into his like conspiracy theories. So he would have been a crazy one as well, but I doubt they'll be doing anything anytime soon for interviews.
Nah, what he's going through him. Plus, Bo's like the same age as me, so we're like same age from the looks of it. But yeah, that dude's going through something, and I think he was supposed to be packaged back because he was doing Uncle Howdy or something.
Yeah, so feel for him. I really do. It's a shame. Like, I think Bray and his wife that only just had a kid. So that's so sad. It really is. It's terrible, especially at that age.
At that age, when you have a family, man, you're leaving behind a family. But there was like a video he did before he died. So it was like there were signs of what it could have been, like his health or something. Then the next 5 hours, he didn't wake up. So It happens, but yeah, bro. Hey, we've been going on pretty long, brother. I know you probably got some stuff to do, but hey, maybe down the road we'll catch up once again. I do like picking up some wrestling knowledge here and there because I feel like a lot of the podcasts, bro, I think wrestling podcast does kind of have a good flow with the people who love wrestling more. You know, I'm kind of getting it now, the concept difference.
We're wrestling fans. We're very passionate, and if we can be outspoken, if there's something we don't like, we will say it. If there's something we like, we will say it. But the best thing about wrestling fans and my experiences, like we are a niche group. We're not as big as football fans, basketball fans. You know, nowhere near the size of
we got
that type of
passionate
audience.
fans, yeah.
But we are passionate, and whenever like we see other wrestling fans, you know, we can't help but talk to each other. So, and that's one of the great things about doing the podcast. It's being able to share my opinions. Obviously, I'm just the co-host, and the day I let Rene and the guests do all the talking. But I ask my questions. But it's great having a platform to share my opinions, and if people agrees with my opinions, it's great. If people disagrees, you know, it's great. I love having discourse. The only people I don't like are people just dicks, basically. I'm like, if you can have a meaningful conversation, I'll entertain it. But if you're being an idiot, it's like playing chess with a pigeon. You can be smart as you want, but they'll just shit over everything.
Yeah, they would. The thing about wrestling is you get to do the little promo trash talk a little bit and all that stuff. And
yeah.
You know, I've always keep the memories of the late Guerrero, man. I like this shirt. This is one of my favorite shirts of Eddie Guerrero. I just rock with that. But I like how Dominic Mysterio is just, he's kind of becoming his own guy.
He's doing good. He's doing well. He's definitely doing a lot better than I thought he would. So, congrats to him. He's doing good.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, but I know we got to get it rolling, bro. But thank you for your time, and tell the rest of the people where they can find your social media platform, and then we'll go from there, man.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. If you want to follow me on Instagram and on Twitter, I'm at James lower dash here or lower dash here. But the main ones to promote, I guess, it's Cafe de Rene. So we're on YouTube. So me and Rene, we do 2 episodes a week. We normally have a guest on every week. Paul London's always a regular fixture on the show. You can find it on YouTube. We also are on Instagram and on Twitter at Cafe de Rene. And I also do my movie podcast with Paul London, Cinemarks. We normally bring an episode out. We have once a week or every other week, but we normally do live streams now. And you can find our social media. I think it's at Cinemarks123. But yeah, please give us a follow or subscribe, and hopefully, good chat to you in the comments or one of our future live streams.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for your time, and for everybody else, thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, CG and James out.